We locked in right now. It's the Wheel1 podcast. Your boy Master Spice got a special guest in the cut here. This is my good friend right here. It's Nikki. She finally came out. We had to get this done. You know, introduce yourself to the people.
Hey all, I'm Nikki. I'm an actor in Toronto, and I'm a rowing coach full time. Yeah.
You know, she's really in, like on the water, but on the grind at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, Nikki, we're just kind of just going to do this how we usually do it on the show. We kind of like to get the beginnings, you know, where you come from, you know, how you grew up, family, sibling life. Like, you know, I always say it like this. This is big Nikki right here, but, like, what was little Nikki doing? Like, what was she on?
Oh, little Nikki was a shit. Little Nikki has a sister, younger sister. And super busy parents.
Okay.
My mom was like a nanny, and she had a daycare growing up as I was growing up, which was sick. My dad worked a whole bunch, but yeah, little Nikki was a shithead. Oh man, we being my sister and I kept my mom so busy because we were both competitive dancers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were busy like 5 to 6 nights a week.
So that's like an interesting concept of like, especially with your mom like running like the daycares type thing, and then like you guys being all over the place with like dancing and everything. Like, how was that balance of like being in the house, like just seeing that?
So my sister and I would go to school most of the day, and then like after school we would come home, and because I was always the oldest, I ended up helping out with the daycare most of the time.
Makes sense. Gotta put in your upkeep.
Yeah, you gotta pay your dues. I mean, I get it. Plus, there was usually like 10 kids,
Jesus.
So she needed a little bit of.
How was that? Like, was it like a huge space you guys were in, or like?
Not really.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's tight. It's compact. You know?
We lived in like a century home, and so it was long, but it wasn't wide. But we always the kids took over the basement.
Okay.
The basement was our dungeon. That's where we stayed.
That makes sense, you know? You might as well round them up in one spot.
Absolutely. So it was either the dungeon or it was out back.
Okay.
That's where we were.
So now, how was the competitive dancing? What, like, kind of got you and your sister into that?
So I started dancing when I was 5. I've always been interested in the theater and dancing and all that jazz, but my mom was actually a model when she was younger. And she was a gymnast, which kind of got us into it. So when I started dancing, it took me a couple years, but I think by the time I was I want to say 9, I started competing.
Okay.
And then my
just get a little time to get seasoned.
Yeah, exactly. They asked me when I was younger, but I was like, no, I'm just a little kid. Like, I just want to have fun.
You were like, maybe.
I mean, I guess, but why? And then I realized that I could get way more fun costumes and travel. And that really sold me.
Always had the little travel bug in you. And, who doesn't like to dress up sometimes?
Right? Exactly. I got more costumes. They were cooler. We had way more fun with the dances. And then, I think 2 or 3 years into competing, they were like, hey, we're going to Disney World. And I was
shit.
Yes, absolutely. I am sold.
How is that now as a kid where it's you're doing this competitive dance thing, but then the perks are things like going to Disney World? I'm tell me about the Disney World experience as a child.
Awesome. As a kid, I loved it. It was a conference and a competition. So in the mornings, we would spend most of it just learning in workshops.
Okay.
We did 2 or 3 different dance styles in the mornings. And then
still got to put that work in, even though it's vacation.
Absolutely. And so then in the afternoons, we'd go home, we'd have food, or back to the resort, I guess, and go home, have food, get ready, and then we'd show up by 5 o'clock, and it was competition time.
Okay. So it was it was scheduled, but you still kind of
Yeah, we got to go out for dinners and stuff like that. And near the end of the competition, you got to actually go into the park. So I think we spent a day in the park.
Okay, makes sense. They're yeah, you guys are here to work. Don't get it confused. But
it was also really cool because we spent the entire thing was in the Contemporary Hotel, so it was a resort on actually in Disney World. Yeah,
it's basically the NBA bubble. You were in the bubble way before it was a thing.
Yeah, for sure. It was sick because being a little kid, you got to run around Disney essentially.
True.
And if you got special cups, you got like free drinks, and so
all the little perks that like maybe aren't the biggest thing, but at that age, absolutely. It's everything. Like
absolutely, the fact that like you could open up our back door and like walk right out onto a beach, super cool for a little kid.
I mean, for an adult, like damn, I'm thinking about it now.
Right? Right? Like I'm looking back at it and being like, shit, I actually got to like live at Disney World for a week.
I mean, like not a lot of people can say that because that's an expensive thing.
Exactly. I was like, damn, how did that happen?
The power of dance.
It was awesome. Yeah.
And like that's like the beautiful thing just about like I feel a lot of competitions in general, like not necessarily like sports, but the competitions where you have to go and do things like that because you just never know where things will take you.
Exactly.
And like no, so sorry. I feel like I cut you off there.
No, not at all. It was just like it was neat for me to be able to go to Disney World and do this workshop and clinic and like compete at that level. And the competition honestly didn't even go well. Like we botched the dance. It was not good. Like
the experience was great though.
Flashback terror nightmares from this dance. We had changed the choreography like 4 weeks before we left. It was a hot mess. But the workshops were like the best thing. Like I still remember half of those dances.
It's like that'll never leave your mind.
Yeah.
Along with the the other parts, but like we stick to the good things.
Right. Like we got to train with some of the best dance teachers in the States.
Oh, that's amazing.
If you had proven yourself and like done really well for the workshops, you actually got scholarships to go do specialized lessons with these teachers in New York.
Oh shit!
So like it was a sick experience for a kid.
Yeah, that's honestly that's amazing because it's like I can just imagine because like I've always thought of like when I played sports like going out to these other places and just like experiencing it and then like to have like that experience along with like it can even go further. This is like I can imagine this is incredible. So like. Now that we kind of got into touching about like that, like what's like other hobbies that like little Nikki was just like into aside from like dance or like something that we just wouldn't even think about?
Well, so when I got into high school, one of my best friends had joined a sport, and I'm not a sport person.
Okay.
Like I used to play t-ball and softball when I was a kid because that's what my parents did.
I mean, I've always been a fan of baseball, so
I love baseball, but I'm not a coordinated human.
You were a dancer. All. How are you not a coordinator?
Dude, dancers are like the clumsiest people. If I am not in dance shoes, I am a klutz. Like it's awful. That's intriguing to me because it's like they look like the most coordinated people. Oh yeah. Do you realize how much work we put into looking coordinated?
That is true.
Man, we are such clumsy people.
I see. Like I guess it's like for me, it's like I'm always seeing the final product, so I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, look at you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of tripping over our own feet before we get to that point.
Understood.
But yeah, so I got into high school, and one of my friends was like, hey, you're going to try out for this rowing team, or I'm going to sit on you.
Interesting proposition.
Straight up. And like, now imagine itty-bitty, like 80 to 90 pounds soaking wet. And she's like, you're going to try out for this team. And I was like, okay, sure. I don't know what I'm doing. So I tried out for the team, and I ended up making it somehow. So now I'm on this rowing team, and I'm like, okay. Cool. I don't know what this is. Yeah, so I was a competitive dancer, and then it ended up being a very competitive rower as well. So,
like, what made you go from I have no idea what this is to like I kind of love this right here?
I was good at it.
Is it just because you were good at it, or you had to love it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like I enjoyed the sport aspect of, like I enjoyed the team aspect of it. But I was a super competitive person. You're just like, I want to win. When I joined the team, I ended up being like one of the top 2 rookies. And so I was like, yeah, of course I'm staying.
You're like, so I mean, like, it's just, I guess, a natural gift. I guess I gotta keep giving it to the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, hindsight, I realized why I was good at the sport. A lot of your strength comes from your legs, and being a dancer, I already had the strength in my legs.
Oh. See, I would think, like, with us being a rower, it's all, like...
You would think, but no. The easiest way to explain how to row, like, relatively properly is, like, if you can ergonomically and correctly pick up a box, you can row.
Like
a heavy box.
Like with your legs, though.
Yeah,
Okay,
because you bend down with your legs. You have to like squat down to pick it up. You stand up with your legs, and then you pick the rest of it up with your back and your arms.
Oh, okay, I see.
So your back and your arms become like the support system, whereas your legs are doing most of the lifting.
Oh, makes sense. See, this is why you got to break the see. This is first-hand knowledge,
right?
Know?
There you go.
In case any rowers out there, just letting you guys know.
Yeah, but that's how you do it. So when you're, going to the gym and you see those really awful rowing machines, just think of picking up a box, just horizontally instead of vertically.
Okay. Because I never thought of that. I'm just thinking like, all right, we're just pumping with the arms, we're tearing our shoulders to shreds.
Arms and shoulders. Everyone. It's hilarious.
See, I was wrong earlier. I was just like, yeah, I'll be a national at that, pushing this chair around. Yeah, right. I can't even stand up. Like,
that's why you get the para teams, man.
True. We were talking about that earlier too. Can't forget about them. Can't forget about the para people. So now that we kind of talked about that, dancing, rowing, what were like some other passions that you feel that kind of like carried over into like adulthood, aside from like rowing, of course?
I really, I loved anything to do with art. So any sort of like painting or drawing and stuff like that, I use as my me time. I'll throw on a television show and I'll just like either color in adult coloring books.
Of course, there's plenty. There's plenty nowadays.
Or I'll like grab some canvases and I'll paint. Like the dollar store's got great stuff to just throw together.
Go wild
for the sake of, yeah, exactly. So art is one of the things that I carried over from when I was a little kid. Probably because my neighbor growing up was an artist.
Okay.
So I always saw her on her porches, like painting and stuff like that.
Doing like her classic Bob. What's his name?
Still life and everything. Oh, the Bob Ross.
Yeah, Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
Just like
Yep.
An accident is a beautiful mistake.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is.
But like that, I love the thought of that because that sounds like very like a peaceful way to like a therapeutic way to kind of like just come into self a little bit, because I feel most of us don't have that nowadays, like because like everyone's in this like, I always call it like a microwave society where like you want it like quick ASAP, and then we get stressed up into that, and then when like real life hits us and it's like, how do we deal with that? Not a lot of us have an escape. And it's always great to see like someone who has like something that they loved from childhood that's just a love. Like you do this for free, and
Absolutely.
It carries over to be something therapeutic and like as an adult. And like that's an amazing thing that you actually have that. Because like I said, a lot of people don't.
No, I made it as I grew up. I made it a priority to ensure that I had a couple things that I do just for me. So like even now, despite the fact that I might not compete in dance. Like I still do it recreationally, and I'm a competitive human, so I'm going to end up competing again.
I've taken
up like different styles of dance that I wouldn't normally do and stuff like that, in order just to give myself that sense of wonder and excitement.
And it's still a challenge. Like,
it's a challenge while also being something that kind of allows me to shut the world out.
And just have fun, bro.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's like for me, like growing up playing basketball, I would just say when I was like on the court, it was the ultimate therapy for me, because like you said, it shut everything off. Like,
right.
The whole world was like, I didn't care about nothing but anything between these lines. And
it's amazing what happens when someone is able to find solace in a sport or in an activity like a hobby and stuff like that, because it just brings this sense of calm and serenity to them, no matter what they're doing outside of the world. Exactly,
which is beautiful. We all need more of that. Find your passions, find what you love.
Absolutely.
Now, Nikki, I'm going to ask you a question here that I like to ask everyone on the show, because now we kind of got a little bit to get to know a little bit about you, and I like to like ask people's views on like just how do they feel like the world is right now, just like with societies in general, because like everyone has different views on things, and we just like to hear everyone's opinion.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
Yeah, it always is. Everyone always says that one, but we got to keep it a little spicy.
I love it. Honestly, it speaks to me. I love that one. The world is chaos. Absolute chaos right now. I think as we, from the wider scope of things, everyone can recognize that, like, the world's kind of on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've got our climate crisis, we have women's rights, we have trans rights, we have honest basic human rights in jeopardy. We've got wars going on in more countries than we can count. Like, people aren't being told about it, media's not talking about it, the discussions aren't happening between not just, like, politicians, but, like, everybody.
Yeah.
The general population is doing a really good job of avoiding the truth of our situation. And it's unfortunate, because if people were willing to actually sit in the shit, is what my theater teacher used to say. When you get into the shit, you sit in it, you sit with it. And if more people were willing to do that, we'd probably be able to do a lot more good.
I generally believe that too, because I feel, as like most people, we hate to like look at the negative things around what's going around us, because it's like, oh, I don't want to focus on that. But it's like, when we don't, that allows it to continue to happen, because there's no conversation now, and then whatever is being done isn't being checked because no one wants to talk about it. So it's just kind of like, it's just like anything. Like, you know, if you sweep enough dirt under the rugs, eventually when you pull it up, there's going to be a shitload of dirt under there.
Absolutely. It's going to be a way bigger mess if you sweep it under the rug.
But it's just like, that's this weird thing about most humans. Like, at the same time, though, I do generally believe it's like, at the same time, it's like a beautiful chaos, because, like, unfortunately, we do gotta, like, in order for a lot of us to appreciate the good times, we have to go through the dirt.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
it's
like, there are definitely positives to it, and there are little moments of pure joy that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to keep that perspective of, like, yeah, in order to really appreciate the joy, you need to sit in it.
You gotta appreciate both, because it's like, you need both. It's the weird perfect balance of life. So it's like, as much as we want to minimize one, which is, it should be, because, like, you know, we don't need, like, all the, like, you know, the from down to, like, basic human rights, where it's like, you know, in some parts of the world, people are still, like, literally slaves. Like, it's like, like, you know, we're 2023, like, you know, so it's just like little things like that, where it's just like, that is just ridiculous. So it's like, from that down to just like that alone helps us appreciate those, like, little things, like our situations on a daily basis, even if they're maybe not where we want them to be.
Yeah, it's like the idea of recognizing your privilege, and the awareness of how you can affect others with that.
And I feel like that's a big thing, because, like, most of us and I feel, especially in this, like, Western part of the world, we have a lot of privilege that we don't really realize, and since we don't realize it, we take it for granted. And then it's like, it's such a thing where it's just like, if there was some people from the other parts of the world that would kill to live in our worst situations.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like, the sheer fact that I'm able to walk around by myself, heaven forbid, my shoulder exposed, my hair exposed, and speak my mind, for some people, that's a huge privilege.
Exactly.
And, like, for me, that's a major part of who I am.
It's regular. It's everyday life. And, like, that's what, like, is, like, the odd beauty in, like, just like you said, sitting in the shit, where we realize what's going on. So one, it helps us appreciate what we do have, and then in turn helps us try to get the same for others.
Yeah,
you know. So I generally do like that purpose and idea that you ran forth, that, like, we just got to sit in it, because I feel a lot of people are very uncomfortable with talking about things that make them uncomfortable.
Oh, I love the uncomfortable.
Right? That's the only way to grow. That's the only way to grow.
Exactly. Like, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to push your comfort zones to grow.
Exactly. And, like, sadly, especially too, I've noticed, like, people just, like, because for me, like I said before, like, I'm a big history buff, so, like, I always think about where we're coming from is kind of like, in a sense, where we're going. And when I look at history, I'd notice this. A lot of people just don't like to look back on it, because it's, like, really horrible when you actually analyze it, and, like, with an adult frame of mind of, like, what was going on. And it's like,
people were awful. Like,
it's
straight up, they were awful.
like sometimes I tell people because it's like as bad as it is now, like 200 years ago, I can kill somebody, go to another town, and have a completely new life.
Yeah, man, not even 200, like literally 100 years ago, that could have been a thing.
And it's like, whatever happened to Jim Bob? I don't even know. This was gone.
We're gone now.
And so it's like now that we're at this space now where it's just like those things are not happening. It's like it's getting better, but like still we see how far the gaps can be in like just demographics, like depending on where you're lucky enough to be born. Like, you know?
Absolutely.
So, you know, that's just one thing, you know, that we're lucky enough that we hit the lotto, you know, us over here.
Sure.
So, that I do kind of want to ask, you know, another question that I like to ask everybody on the show is because, like, you know, mental health is always a big thing for me. So always has been. And I always love to get people's, like, perspective on that, too. So I always like to ask about, like, a situation where you kind of first encounter, like, you know, you got something going on with your own mental that you might need some help with.
Amazing. Of course, you're bringing up all of, like, the really good things. Because conveniently, I'm a huge mental health advocate.
Oh shit! I knew this would be perfect. We said this would be great.
I grew up with a lot of my friends and family dealing with a lot of mental health, so I've always been very aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably noticed some of my own mental health cues popping up in the middle of high school, to be honest. And like, stupidly, I was aware enough that I knew where the triggers were coming from.
Mm.
But like, I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression since I was like 16.
Oh wow! How was that like too? Just like hearing that, like, you know, at that age.
So,
because there's one thing to like have an idea, but then
it's one thing to have an idea, and it's another thing to have it like genuinely confirmed.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of it was. There was a lot of shame around it.
Wow.
I was ashamed.
I can especially, like, because, like, before times like now, where I feel a lot of people are more open about talking about whatever they're going through. So I can imagine, but, like...
Yeah, I was super ashamed to even, like, admit that I was struggling. And so when I got the diagnosis from my doctor, he minimized it. I had a really terrible doctor when I was a
Yeah, that's not really, like, you know, give it to me straightforward. Like,
yeah, no, I had a really terrible doctor when I was younger, and he minimized it and was like, oh, yeah, you have, you know, anxiety, like, situationally induced anxiety around testing kind of nonsense, and was like, yeah, so you just get extra time when you test. Like, my dude, that's not what this is.
Yeah,
like,
and two, like, I'm pretty sure the anxiety would lead to, like, there's other triggers than just, like, doing a test.
Yeah. Know? Absolutely. And I grew up and I had some fairly traumatic things happen to me when I was younger. And so the minimizing from the doctor didn't help any of those issues. And like, realistically, had he actually listened and thought to listen, I probably would have been better off. But now that I'm an adult, I take the steps to make sure that people hear me.
No, I mean, which is most important because I feel the hardest thing I feel for a lot of people is when they feel that they're not being heard. Mm-hmm. Because then after a while, it makes them feel like, well, what's the point of even fucking talking?
Yeah.
If no one's going to listen.
Exactly.
And that just starts leading people down this rabbit hole that no one wants to be in.
Yeah, and like, I make sure that in the position that I'm in, so I'm in a position of authority with being a coach. And so I always make sure that, like, I'm as truthful as reasonably, like, as it is reasonable to be with the athletes that I coach, because they're in high school. And so they're going through a lot of these stressors and they're going through a lot of these emotions, and they're not really able to talk about it to their parents or to their teachers, or maybe they're not even comfortable talking about it to those people. Mm-hmm. But I make sure that I'm in a position where if they need someone to talk to, they can come talk to me.
A safe space, you know?
Yeah.
And like it's an amazing thing to have, especially like for a lot of kids, because like even me, when I was thinking about like when I'm like, you know, as a teenager or like 16 or like something like that, it's like I wouldn't tell my parents about a lot of shit I'm going through because like one, it's either I don't want them to worry, and then or two, it's like I don't know if I really even like to hear this. Or number two, or then three,
For
it's
sure.
like I don't really feel comfortable telling them this.
Absolutely.
So it's like in turn, it leaves you to either talk to others who hopefully are good influences, or you dive into like bad influences, which is like two roads, and they lead very different paths.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's wicked important for children. Like, adults, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what you see out there right now is focused around, like, teenagers learning about their mental health. But I think it's really important for kids to learn about their mental health. Like,
for real.
You're allowed to feel sad for an extended period. Like, you're allowed to feel sad, and then you're allowed to feel depressed. And what's the difference between sadness and depression? Well, it's an extended period of time, and or it's triggered by something specific, right? And it's learning the differences between those so that they can effectively identify them and get help for them.
Yeah, especially if they need it, because like a lot of people I've noticed who just always feel like they've had some sort of like mental health issue. They usually say like, I've felt this way for a long time. It's not like it just happened the other day. Of course, there are some things that like traumatic events will like cause. But other than that, like, especially when people talk about they have, like, anxiety, or people have, like, I don't know, BPD or, like, bipolar. Like, they probably have always felt like that. So it doesn't, like, it's, to them, they feel like a complete outsider because, one, my brain just works differently from everyone. So now I feel fucking weird. And then, like, I can't talk to nobody about it because now they're looking at me like I'm fucking crazy.
Absolutely.
And then, so it's just, I can just imagine the mental stressors that it is just to even tell somebody that you're dealing with something like that, let alone like actually seeking to try to find help at a time like when people don't really understand.
Yeah, so. It's true. And like there's so much stigma around it.
Yeah, which is like horrible because it's just like we all go through shit, some of us are better at hiding it than others. Like, I feel like that's just what it is sometimes. It's just like a lot of us just want to hide that we're going through something by, I don't know, maybe diving into work or just like distracting ourselves with other things without like identifying the main source of like whatever the fuck is we're going through or what's harming us at the moment in time. Unfortunately, it's an exercise we all got to do, guys. It sucks, but like shit.
Yep. Sit in your own shit. Figure it out.
Exactly. We're all doing that. Like I'm doing it right now. So it's
right,
like,
you just got to do it.
So now, like, I kind of want to go back to, like, when you were saying, like, about, the first time you kind of, like, felt like you were kind of, like you were diagnosed with, like, what you were going through, like, with anxiety and depression. Like, what were kind of things that you learned maybe along the way that helped you cope with it? Because, like, I feel that's always a big thing, how we kind of get back from, being on the ground.
Yeah. So, because I was constantly surrounded with mental health issues, when I was a kid, I was able to identify the different symptoms or triggers or honestly, it was little things like I would remember sitting in the front seat of my car with my mom and she'd be driving and she would get real quiet and then I would notice her fingers start tapping on the steering wheel. And I knew, okay, she's going to start having an anxiety attack. How can I help minimize the situation? And a lot of times it would just be like, hey, so did you hear about blah, 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 and just like distracting her. And so like distractions are always a good habit, but at the same time, it's not something that you can do consistently.
Yeah, I was going to say it's effective, but it's like
it's effective in the moment, but detrimental for the long term.
Exactly, because like when you can't find a distraction, it's just like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how do you cope when your coping mechanism is no longer available to you?
Exactly.
And so I've developed a few different coping mechanisms. Typically, like I'll have some piece of jewelry that I can fiddle with. Fiddling is because then it helps. I find it helps calm
You're doing
my
something.
mind. Yeah, it's like just that little motion of like rotating my ring around my thumb is enough to like help calm my brain.
Funny enough for me, like it's bad habit, but one that I do that does help me sometimes is like when I actually do smoke is like because I've realized it's more of the breathing technique that is
Yep.
calming me down than actually smoking.
Oh,
It's
for
'cause
sure.
I'm like, oh, maybe upset or whatever. I'm just like, and I keep doing that enough where I'm just like, and I'm like, was it
Yeah.
even that bad? Like,
The breathing is a huge thing.
yeah.
And, like, I learned that from school.
Funny enough, I only realized that as I got older because I was like, would always sit. I'm like, why do people like say that this calms them down? Because like I would do it recreationally, so I'm like,
Yeah.
And then I thought about it. I'm like, that makes total sense. Like, look what you're
Right?
doing, like the action, like
The action of, like, very explicitly and very specifically focusing on breathing.
Mhm.
Right? Like the idea of like, okay, inhale for X number of seconds, exhale, like the idea of how long can I hold my breath for or whatever it might be, ends up becoming that ritual of like, oh, my brain is just not focused on the thing that's triggered this anxiety.
And then when you do get it, it's like, oh, okay, that's it. Like, so it's like it's always good to have that one thing that I feel like I guess kind of puts your brain on autopilot.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
It's
Putting
like,
your brain on autopilot is great. I know if I'm really freaking out, I will actually clean.
I mean, nothing wrong with that,
No, I mean, it sort of helps. You get the two extremes. You get, like, the point where you're like, all right, I need to clean to keep myself busy. And then you hit the depression state where you're like, oh, I can't be bothered to get off the couch. Like, I just can't do it.
Yeah. That's two ends of the spectrum right there for sure.
But then within that, you then try and find things that bring you joy and motivate you to do it. So, like, recently, yeah, I went into, I had a huge depression slump. And my apartment was a disaster. Just awful. But I couldn't get myself off the couch or out of my bed to actually clean. And so what I would do is, like, anytime I did dishes, whether it was, like, 3 dishes or, like, a sink full, I would message my friends and be like, oh my god, I actually did this.
Yeah.
And then they would cheer for me, and you're like, okay, I have that support system.
Yeah, sometimes that's what it is. It's like you kind of just... You need to just do one. Like I remember I read this earlier today, too. Like, obviously it comes from an old Chinese proverb, I believe. It was just like, every long journey starts with a single step. And it's like, sometimes that's all it is, where it's just like, shit, you didn't feel like doing all this, just did you do a couple?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, maybe tomorrow let's do a couple more. Like,
exactly.
And it's just, that slowly kind of gets you into your groove, I feel, because, like, too, consistency is always a great thing. Like, I feel like that's why routines are really good for, it's just, I feel like the mental health and just, like, the human brain in general, because, like, once you have a consistency of a routine, whatever it is, hopefully healthy. Because some routines aren't the greatest for us.
Yeah.
But, like, if it's hopefully healthy, I feel it always, like, benefits you because, one, you're used to doing it, so now once you don't do it, it feels weird. And then it kind of keeps you on point. It keeps you right and, like, in that happy space. Because, like, now when you do it, you kind of, like, it's a weird, not, like, nostalgic, but it's, like, an accomplishing feeling.
Yeah, it's totally an accomplishing feeling. You're just like, I actually completed that thing. There was nothing holding me back from doing that. And now look the reward.
And then it's like, what else can I do today?
Yeah, right? Like, that's exactly how it starts.
And that's the snowball effect. That's why I love it. So it's like, that's why I always love having these kind of conversations, because I'm always big on, like, showing people that you can be very vulnerable, but then very strong at the same time. Being vulnerable doesn't make you less strong. And I always feel like it's always a point to emphasize and push on, and it's just great that, like, we're just this conversation alone is just showing many different ways on how you can do that by, like, still opening up, but then still finding things that you need to do for yourself that help you get there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's super important to show not just yourself, but, like, other people that those things are possibilities, right? Because you don't know who's struggling, you don't know what kind of struggle they're going through, and maybe that one day where you come into work and you're like, hey, I'm having a bad brain day, I'm just gonna, like, put my music in, if you need me, just, like, tap my shoulder, is enough for somebody else to be like, oh, I'm allowed to have bad brain days.
Yeah.
Like, I'm allowed to do this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man,
I've had plenty of those days,
Yep.
especially before. Whereas it's like I don't even want to talk to nobody. Like like, if you hear my music, just know, like the conversations hold to a minimum.
Absolutely.
And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that because like we all have our days, and I feel one a big thing I always like to say to people though is like it's always good to have your day, but like try not to make it days.
Yeah.
Because like that's like you kind of gotta like be like, all right, I'm gonna sit in the shit for right now, but I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna clean myself off a little bit, and I'm gonna start again.
Yeah.
And like
on those times where it starts becoming multiple days, I find like the best thing, at least for me, is I actually make plans that I have to stick to. So I will make plans that I know will bring me joy, no matter how much I don't want to do them. So, like, I'll book a dance lesson, or I will, like, book a lunch with friends, or...
something to get you out the house.
Yeah, something that will get me out of the house, something that will actually bring me joy, even though I'm going to, until the very last second, be like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get dressed.
It's like, you're supposed to be there at 8 o'clock, and you're just like 7:45. Like,
yeah, exactly. Do I really have to go? But then you know that, like, your friend's going to be like, yo, broski, get your ass here.
And then, to be honest, once you do those things, you always, like you said, you feel that sense of accomplishment. Then you just feel good because, like, it's always great to socialize and like, get out and just not be trapped in your four walls because, like, that can be tormenting in itself. Yeah. So, like, it's always good, find your little things, get yourself out there, listen to my friend Nikki here, But all right, Nick, I kind of want to like switch it up a little bit into like I want to talk about like how did you kind of like get into like acting? Like what sparked that, and what made you kind of just want to pursue that a little bit more?
I'm an attention whore. I love the attention. I will admit that. I always have been. Literally from like day one, I was that kid in all the family photos that'd be like standing on the opposite end being like, oh my god, yes.
Voguing.
Yeah. I was that kid. So it was no surprise to anyone when I was like, I want to go to dance. And then from dance, I was like, I want to be an actor. I want to do theater. No one was shocked.
Oh, okay. So this is like on the trajectory. It was like, okay, we saw this. We saw this.
Absolutely.
See, like, I love to just hear that, and especially because, like, with being in the industry too, like now, it's always interesting to see like where people get their love from. Like for me, it was like I always just love watching TV shows and movies and like sit down and like act them out myself.
That's amazing.
Like, yeah, I was like I told the story on the show before, but like I used to like put on I used to love Men in Black when I was a kid, so I put on like a suit and like with glasses. And,
yes.
Watch the movie and like do the lines like I was like Will Smith and like my imaginary friend was Tommy Lee.
Absolutely, that's the way to do it, man.
And then like it was good until like one time my mom heard me say like I think I said goddamn one time. She's like, oh, don't say that.
Yep.
So that, but like from then I've always had it, but it took me a long time to like as an adult to be like, oh wow, this is an actual possibility to do.
Yeah, and I was very aware as a child that I wanted to be an actor, and so was my mom. And like my mom and dad both really like they really helped me and they supported me.
That's always amazing.
Yeah, and so when I would have been, I don't know, elementary school, like maybe grade 6 kind of idea. My mom got me a background agent.
Oh, okay. So you kind of you've been doing this.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. So I did like the background work all the way through, like from grade 6 to grade 8, all the way through high school even. It was super fun, and I still had my background agent until I was in university.
Okay, good.
It wasn't until like I moved away and like far away from Toronto and Hamilton, and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Yeah, I was in, full-time school and a varsity athlete. Like, I had not.
You don't have the time to kind of like, do much, let alone like, okay, come all the way down here to do like a self-tape or some shit.
Exactly. So I did the background work for a whole bunch, and then I had done like little theater things here and there kind of idea.
How was that? Like, I've always like thought of like theater. I always think of it like the hardest form of acting to me personally.
I love theater.
Of course you do.
I'm a theater kid through and through. Film and television is great.
But there's nothing like singing and dancing on the stage.
Yeah, like, and it's funny because while I do musicals, I don't actually love doing musicals.
Well, you would think that would be like your go-to.
You would think.
You're a regular theater actor.
Yeah, I am a straight play actor. It's the only straight thing about me. Yeah. Yeah, that's a running joke with a bunch of my friends.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I love straight plays. I love theater of the absurd. So like Samuel Beckett and Brecht and all of that. Like, give me the weird shit. But I'm obsessed with Shakespeare.
Oh, okay.
I would love,
one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. I would love to end up on the Stratford stage doing Shakespeare. Like, that'd be incredible.
I mean, we're working on that. That's the goal.
That's the goal. That's the end goal. Absolutely. I mean, like, half of their actors are all in their, like, 40s and 50s, right?
That's the beautiful thing about acting is, like, one thing I always try to tell people. As much as it's fucking hard, don't get me wrong.
Oh,
sure. You know, it's fucking, any type of acting, it's fucking hard. It's not easy to be like, hey, do this now. Like, you know, like, that is, people don't understand. That's, like, difficult in itself. But then it's like, one thing I do like to tell people is, like, if you love it, the longevity in it is kind of amazing. Because, like, you can work to, like, you're in your elderly age. Absolutely. Because there's always a grandpa or grandma that needs to be played.
Absolutely. Always. And, like, especially, it sounds terrible, but, like, depending on what you look like, man, you can play young kids for such a long time.
True. There are people in their 30s playing, like, high school kids. And
like, I literally turned 30 this year, and I think last year I had an audition for a 16-year-old, and then 2 days later I was auditioning for a mom.
See, I wish I could get that range. Like, I'm not, like, I'm only I'm turning like 29 like next month, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
but it's like I mostly get, I feel, young adult to young dad. But I feel like, I don't know, with like the beard and everything, I can't.
Facial hair and the tattoos that do, yeah.
Oh yeah, fuck, I forgot about those.
See, my tattoos are easily hidden.
Yeah.
No one knows I've got them.
Yeah, I don't help myself with the big one on my neck.
I've got all of mine hidden, so no one realizes until it's too late.
Yeah, see, for me, I try to like shoot as much like self-tapes and everything that I can, like in long sleeves, so that they just don't say anything. Because like the ones a couple times I do the short sleeves, it's like,
Yep.
I think we can find another black guy with no tattoos.
Yep. Right? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah. Because it says...
It's great for diversity, because you're like, yeah, man, I'm even more diverse. But you're like, shit.
It's like,
now I'm too diverse?
Yeah, because like, they're like, I don't know if we want to, like, get all that in there.
Yeah.
So, like, that's always, like, the one damaging thing. But, you know, it's okay. We work around it. But, like, again, like, going back into, like the theater, play acting, sorry. Getting tongue-tied there. But, like, back with, like, the straight play acting, like, one thing I always thought that was, like, hard about is, one, it's, like, live. And then, two, the fact of, like, especially because I thought about, like, being within the chair now. I'm like, how would I do those, like, outfit changes so quickly?
Yeah, quick changes are a skill.
Yeah, that's
quick changes are a skill, my friend.
I think about it. These are the little things I'm thinking about.
They are a skill. They are a skill and a half. They are not easy, especially if you have to do them with less and less people.
Yeah, because like I'm assuming like bigger plays, like they're gonna have people like pretty much take the clothes off for you.
Man. If you do a show at Mervish, all you got to do is like walk off the stage.
Hands out.
Yeah, right. Like they got it down to a science.
It's like it's almost like I would think like in that like level, it's like NASCAR. Like, you know, we're in and out 30 seconds. Like, you know, we got time to waste.
Yep. The further into community theater you get, the less people you have helping you, and the more of the skill it becomes. So, like,
for you, like, how fast could you quick change if need be? You're like doing a play.
Very fast. Depends on what you're after.
All right.
What outfits are we going from and to?
All right, we're going. Since you said you love Shakespeare, we're going Shakespearean.
All right, so Shakespearean would be a full bodice and corset and everything.
Yeah, all that.
So with those dresses, depending on the fasteners, I'd say probably a minute at most, depending on the fasteners and how many people I have helping me.
Mm-hmm.
In the most recent play I've done, I did a kids show. It was super last minute, got thrown into it like literally 3 weeks beforehand. Super fun.
I was about to say, that's like, tight to crime for that.
Yup, it was chaos. It was pure chaos. The oldest kid was like 10.
Oh.
Yep. And it was a Christmas show. And they cast me as Scrooge. I was filling in for their Scrooge because their Scrooge had quit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, their Scrooge quit, so I've jumped in. And so for that show, I had to do a quick change.
No.
And I was going from a suit... I was going from a suit vest, so I had the dress vest, I had the pants, and at that point, I was just in the house robe.
Okay.
So I had the house robe on, the slippers on, the pants and everything. And I had to do a quick change into a suit. Like into an entirely different suit.
Okay.
So the pants had to change, the jacket had to change, and I think I had to throw a tie on. I went from like a bow tie to a full tie.
Oh, like actual tie or like just throw it over the top?
Well, it was already pre-tied.
Okay. I was just like, let's say, if you're tying that bitch too, I'm like, okay, your skills are on another level.
Hell no, it was pre-tied. But I had to do it. The time frame I had been given was 30 seconds.
Oh.
I had to do it in the interlude or like the musical intro to What's This from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So that was the time frame I had been given. And I think by the time we closed, I managed to have it down to like 20 seconds.
Oh, okay. Cut the time even shorter. Fuck that.
Well, because like what I ended up being able to do is I would say my cue line, run backstage, and as I'm running backstage, I'm already undoing the house robe.
Makes sense.
Right? And like the kids knew, stay out of my way. Don't be
like, I will kick one of you little people in the face.
Legit, the first time I did it, I actually shoved a kid. Straight up. There was no, no
get out of my way.
Yeah. Shoved a kid being like, get out of my way, I need space. It was hilarious. The other adult backstage was laughing so hard at me.
I'm pretty sure they all learned, all right.
Oh, they did. They stayed out of my way.
It was literally like a C as you walked backstage.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
Yeah. So I would do the change and everything. But the thing was, the curtains were closed. So what I needed to do in order to... Because not only did I have to, make sure that quick change was done, I also had to go straight into singing.
Oh.
So, not only was I doing a quick change, I was going straight into What's This? Which is such a hard and fast song to sing, my God.
Especially when you're already, gotta be a tiny bit out of breath just from,
Absolutely, and it's the end of the show. Oh. So I'm tired because it's the end of the show. I'm out of breath from a quick change. And now suddenly I'm like, what's this? What's this? It was nuts.
Acting.
Exactly. So, I always tried to make sure that I was center stage, behind the curtain, and had a moment to breathe before the curtains opened, so I didn't look as panicked and chaotic.
Oh, so that was that extra 10 seconds before.
Yeah.
It was really just to, okay,
I can do this. Yep, that's exactly what that was for.
I mean, hey, man, see, that's why, you get a little bit better, you're out there and you're in the uncomfort zone, you got comfortable, you start knocking it out, all right, now I can... All right, let me do a better What's This right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's amazing. And like I said, the skill of theater, because that's one thing that scares me about it. Because as much as I can memorize lines and get them down, I'll fuck up lines from time to time.
Yep.
And I would just be embarrassed a little bit if I did that alive, especially when knowing me, I'm I know what it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did a show once where I was the female lead. It was an ensemble cast for the most part, but I was one of the two female love interests.
Okay, so you push a little to the forefront.
Yeah, I was one of the leads, and oh man, the show had just started. I think it was like the second show of the run too. Like the show had just opened, the show had just started. We were like maybe 5 minutes in, and I blanked hard.
This is like,
and it wasn't even like on a monologue where I could pretend to like save myself.
oh, because those are the best where you're just like,
you can take the moment and you're like, oh, I'm doing a dramatic pause. I'm just really letting it sink in. No, not in the slightest.
Was it like someone asked you a question and you were just like...
It was a quick dialogue back and forth between, like, myself, the guy who's playing my father, and then, like, the guy who ended up being my love interest. And I was like, I blanked, and I didn't remember what I was supposed to say next, because I was the one, like, leading the conversation kind of idea, because I was supposed to be like, but daddy, please!
And they're looking at you like...
Yeah, and so I shoot my co-star a look of like, fuck, and he just like jumps on it and feeds the line and like feeds it into the rest of the dialogue, and like we just keep going. And as soon as he did that, I was like, right, yep, I'm good. I'm good to go back into it. But it was that moment of panic. And
so like, how did he start it if you were supposed to start it?
He just like, he fed the line as if it was a question from him rather than a statement from me. Yeah.
Ingenious. To see, this is what I mean, again, with the theater, on the fly.
Absolute brilliance.
Like, because I wouldn't even think of that. I would be like, oh, fuck. Like, what's she gonna do now?
Yeah, well, and like, as a scene partner, that's what happens. Like, you know where you're going next, and you know where the scene is going next. So if your partner misses that line, you then go, how do we get there? Right? That's like one of the tricks of theater, is always like, how do we get to that next moment?
It's about knowing the destination. The journey can change as you go.
Yeah. And like, some you have to stick to the dialogue.
Of course.
Some it's
for dramatic purposes.
Yeah. But others, there's a little more, like, it's a little loose, so you can kind of wiggle your way through it.
Guys, sorry about that. I'm a little technical too. Technical difficulties, you know. It's all led up to my mouth, you know, unfortunately. Yep. But no, we're back at it. We're back at it now, Nikki. Now, before we end it, you know, because we're about to wrap anyways. So, again, got the love for theater in there. We're talking about that. Now, one thing I always got to ask people around the close of the wrap-up is, what's going on forward? Like, what's happening coming forward? Like, you know, like, what can you talk about?
Ooh.
Let us know. Like, you know, what's on the table? It's always the time to plug yourself.
What's on the table? Well, so I've got an audition for a show coming up in June. That's going to be exciting.
We got our fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. It's kind of a dream show for me. It's The Sound of Music.
Are you allowed to talk about that?
I mean, well, so it's a community theater production,
okay,
so it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
When you went that deep, I was like, whoa, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah,
here.
No, it's only community theater. We're all good. So I've got that going on. I'm actually in a vocal competition at the beginning of June as well.
Okay. Another fingers crossed.
Yeah, that'd be neat. And then, honestly, it's mainly just rowing. Like, from about now until the end of November, it's just rowing for me.
Okay.
So, like, next week, I'm actually away in the States for a training camp that I've organized.
Okay, where are you going?
North Carolina.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would it be warm over there right now?
It sure is. It's like between 10 to 15 degrees.
All right, better than here. So that's always exciting. You know,
Yeah.
So, like, especially, like, how far, like, coaching can take you. Like, you know, it's like from, like, doing it just, like, as something that, someone just said you should do, and then now, like, it's like, oh, yeah, look, you know, just going to North Carolina to coach.
I've made a career out of it, and I get to travel literally all over North America.
I mean, that's an amazing thing. And, like, it's funny, you got two jobs, but both your jobs are, like, not conventional jobs.
No, absolutely not. I said screw convention.
I mean, I kind of did the same. Like, look what I'm doing. Like,
exactly.
I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Like, you know, I'm just gonna chase this and see what happens.
Full send with passions. Who cares?
And, like, you know, so, like, you know, those are some amazing things that you got coming up. Also, something that, you know, we both got coming up. You might see us around too. Yeah, you know, I think we took some pictures for a certain company.
It's possible that if a certain company decides to do some charity work, you might see us.
You never know. You know? But keep your eye out for that.
Yeah.
You know? But anything else you want to, like, leave us with before we get out of here? You know?
Ooh, No, I think like I don't know, just be good to people. Be good to yourself and be good to others.
Very simple, but
Yeah.
very, very complex because it's like it's a basic thing that we all should do.
It's hard to do, but like be good to yourself and be good to people because that's really the only way we're going to get through this.
Yeah, because like a great saying that I stole from the movie National Lampoon's Van Wilder was never take life too serious because you never make it out alive. And
I love that movie.
I really do too. Like, come on,
great.
Like, and first of all, but it gives you philosophical quotes like that in a movie about like a guy who stays in college for like 8 years. Like, come on,
you never know.
Beauty, gold. Even a dumbass drops a smart turd.
Absolutely.
So, like, again, Nikki, I want to thank you for coming through. Really do appreciate it. Sitting down, having this good conversation.
Thank you.
It was a great
fun.
one. I did too. Like I told you we were gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
But now to everyone there on the YouTube world, I know we do this about every week, but like I'm gonna keep doing it to you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, especially if you made it this far. Like, help me out. Like, put something in the comments, like have an argument with somebody. I don't know. Tell someone that they're being an asshole or they're not being good enough.
Debates are great. Go for it.
Either which way, let us know. But this is the Wheel1 podcast. Boy, Master Twice. We sign.